This is a re-recording of my message from February 25th of this year. And the title of my message is, Remember What is Precious. Now, we have all had times when we feel out of balance or out of kilter with other things going on in our lives. Now, kilter is an interesting word. Out of kilter is when someone or something is not quite right. Something is a little off. An example of this is when you have this strange feeling that you've forgotten something, but you just can't remember what. Or it's kind of like that one framed picture that's on your wall that's slightly askew when you look at it compared to all the other pictures around it on the wall. It's a feeling that something that was working before isn't working anymore. And at these times, you can even feel as if you've lost a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, and your direction in life. Maybe something has happened that you didn't expect. To be thrown for a loop is another way that we often express this idea of being out of kilter. We feel like we're on shaky ground. It's kind of like being on that boat that the disciples were on that stormy sea. And Jesus was there with them in the boat, but he was sleeping. Now, these disciples are fishermen, and they have been in all kinds of storms out on the sea, fishing. So this storm must have been quite horrific for them to be fearful of their lives, and for them to waken Jesus with their fears. And as the story goes, Jesus then calms the storm by saying, "Peace, be still," to it. And just like this, you and I, at these times when we feel this turbulence inside, we want to be able to say, "Peace," to that feeling of fear. Let me be still. Peace to that feeling of anger or worry or anxiety. Let me be still. In his spiritual dictionary, The Revealing Word, Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore describes chemicalization in this way. He said it's part of our healing process. There's always, he said, a spiritual transformation taking place in us which changes negative energy into positive energy. And as this energy transforms, a kind of bubbling up of the negative stuff that we need to let go of occurs so that we can be healed, so that we can move on to our next level of understanding, our next experience of spiritual growth. When these experiences bubble up, there is resistance. And Charles Fillmore says all kinds of commotion occurs in our consciousness. This happens when a new idea comes to us, and we're working with that new idea, that new understanding about things. We're wanting to make changes in how we think, how we feel, and how we respond to certain situations. And the old feelings, don't want to be released. The old feelings are holding on in us. And so there's this internal turbulence that goes on. And sometimes this inner resistance affects our bodies. Some people end up getting colds, or they have strange dreams or nightmares, floods of tears or laughter, breaking out in a rash, seeing bright colors, or being confused or disoriented. It can be rather scary when we are in this process of chemicalization, but we do know that it doesn't last. We move through this experience. But for a while, it can be scary and shaky. In his book, The Exquisite Risk, Daring to Live an Authentic Life, the author, Mark Nepo, asks when we are feeling the pain of being lost in our life, when we feel alone, when we have a sense that we've lost our connection to everything, and we feel out of touch with what really matters to us in life. How do we open ourselves again to life and to love? In another of his books, The Endless Practice, Mark Nepo, explains. He writes that no matter how lost in fear or distrust we may be, no matter how consumed or disoriented by hurt or by anger, we can find our way back to all that is heartening by giving ourselves over completely to attention and intention and appreciation. Look and find those things to be grateful for. And this moves us back into that experience of harmony and peace. Nepo suggests that the simplest and the bravest way to counter the plight of disheartenment when we feel it is to move toward what is precious. Ultimately, moving towards what is precious returns us to what really matters to us, and in this way returns us to wholeness. But how do we find what is precious to us? Nepo says that when we fall out of clarity and authenticity, as we inevitably will, there are renewable risks that we can take that allow us to re-enter the stream of life. And one of these risks is the risk to see things differently. Jesus knew this, and he was constantly speaking and teaching in ways that forced his listeners to entertain a different perspective, a different way of seeing things. When he taught and he compared the tenets of the Jewish spiritual laws with the truth as he understood it, he was always saying things like, "You have heard it said that," or "This may be your understanding of this from the past, but I say to you, here's another way of looking at that. Here's another way to think about that." For example, in Matthew 5, verse 38 through 48, Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them also your left cheek." And remember this one in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 and 44. "You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." So you see, Jesus was always giving examples of how we can see things differently. Being able to see things differently allows us to look beyond the appearances of things and to see within our own self, within others, and within the situation that is troubling us, the beauty that is there, the love that is there, the forgiveness that is there, the wholeness that is there. Seeing things differently allows us to remember what is precious in ourselves and in others. If you have ever wanted to be an artist, realize right now that you are. You are a Michelangelo. When Michelangelo was asked how he could sculpt such a masterful statue of David from a block of granite, he told them that he just visualized David and then he just carved away everything that was not David. When we are able to see what is precious, we can carve away or let go of everything that is not true. Then it is that we can see the love, the compassion, the creativity, and the beauty that has been hidden from us. It's the same kind of seeing which Monet did to create his masterpieces. During the life of the Impressionist Monet, there was a great controversy over what his non-representational landscapes meant. What was he symbolizing with all those colors shouting out their variations of light? Well, Monet, who seldom granted interviews, finally declared, "I am symbolizing nothing. This is what I see." Many thought that Monet was just making it up, imagining wildly what flowers and fields and stones by the sea might look like if God were to take a closer look at them. But what Monet did was a lot more brave. Like a human microscope, he kept taking the risk to look closer and more deeply until he saw the warmth rise from the trees, until he saw the waves remake the sea, until he saw the shimmering happening in all of life. And he kept watching after everyone else walked away, until he saw strange flowers break through the ground where before there was only silence. He focused so far in, like Van Gogh, that he saw everything shimmer. He proved by the strength of his attention that nothing can keep out the light. Now, we don't have to be great painters to see how everything around us shimmers, because everything is energy. Everything is vibrant with the life of God. And because the opportunity to see things freshly is always possible for us if we dare to put aside our assumptions and our preconceptions. Nepo wrote that when we slow down to really see the flowers, or our lover, or the dog, or the cat, we often see them in a brand new way, in all their beauty. It often seems as if the beauty of the world has been hiding from us, and in this way we get in touch with what is precious. When we slow down and really take a look, not just with our eyes, but with our heart as well, we can see what is precious at the heart of being. I was surprised to read of a story, a true story, where a family remembered what was precious about a stranger, and they extended their hearts to help him. The article was in the Salina Journal, the Sunday edition on February 18, and it was titled, "A Family's Radical Kindness Changes Homeless Man's Life." It was a story which was reminiscent of a movie that came out several years ago called The Blind Side, which was also based on a true story. In this article in the journal, a young black man, Wahid Burnside, was homeless, and he was staying at a rescue mission in Topeka in the year 2016. Kimberly Daugherty met Burnside while she was teaching an 8-week employment class at the Washburn Institute of Technology. And Burnside was in her class, but he seemed distant, and he seemed not to be engaged in what was going on in class. And so after class, she stopped him to visit him and find out a little bit more about this man. Kimberly shared that Burnside had experienced extreme isolation, and he didn't feel that he was worthy of acknowledgement. His body language conveyed that he was attempting to be invisible, and he avoided eye contact. She found that he wanted to continue attending the GED class, and he wanted to get a welding certificate, which the school offered, but he didn't know how this was going to be possible for him. The rescue mission where he had been living was soon going to force him out because he didn't have any children and he didn't have a substance abuse. So many of the programs available to others in these situations were not available to him. Kimberly spoke with her husband and her 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. And she described Wahid as someone that she felt strongly that she wanted to be able to help. She said to the reporter of the Salina Journal, "I just knew that there was something different about him." After the employment class ended in February 2017, Burnside moved in with the Daugherty family. While he was there, due to the love and the acceptance that they extended to him, he began to gain confidence. He earned his GED and his welding certificate. And after staying with the family for several months, he was able to rent his own place. The family remembered what was precious in this human being who needed help. Daugherty said that she wanted to share her story with the journal because there are people out there who deserve radical kindness. She said it could change everything for you. It changed everything for her and her family. It changed all of us, she said. Her eldest daughter, 17-year-old Cassandra, told the Journal reporter that people should not be afraid to be compassionate. And her youngest daughter, 9-year-old Guinevere, told the Journal that it's better to have kindness because kindness is the only thing that keeps this world together. And their 7-year-old son just felt that it was great to have another guy around the house. Kimberly described the relationship that developed between Burnside and her husband as a bromance. Well, as we continue to work our way through this season of Lent, the 40 days plus the 6 Sundays before Easter, letting go of what is limiting and negative and cultivating what is loving, compassionate, kind, Jesus gives us a parable to explain what our work in learning to keep our focus on what is precious is all about. This parable is in Matthew chapter 13, verses 47 through 50, and it's called the parable of the dragnet. A dragnet is a net which is weighted down, and the fishermen pull this net across the bottom of the sea to gather every kind of fish. Now, to understand this metaphysically, we'll have to remember certain things. We are not talking about people per se. We're talking about states of consciousness and what is happening with our thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. I'd like to share this passage with you. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew it unto the shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. The kingdom of heaven, metaphysically understood, is not an outer place, but rather it's an inner process that will bring us into harmony with God and all that is good. The net, metaphysically, represents the activity of our mind. The sea represents universal life, energy, the unlimited potential for good that's all around us. Fish represent ideas or thoughts in our mind, the net, which catch hold of ideas. The end of the world represents the end of any particular experience in our life. The end of any traumatic change can symbolically be expressed as the end of the way things were in our lives. Angels represent the wisdom and the inner guidance that we receive from God when we choose to open ourselves to this presence and power within us. And fire is not necessarily a symbol of destruction. Here, metaphysically understood, fire is a symbol of cleansing. It's a purification, a refinement, or upliftment. For example, fire is used to process gold, to refine gold, to shape and form gold. Fire is used to test this metal. So, paraphrase, this parable of the dragnet might go something like this. In our process of spiritual growth, we are always encountering different ideas. The net represents our capacity of mind to gather all kinds of thoughts, to entertain all kinds of ideas and all kinds of possibilities, which have to be tested and sorted. The good we keep, the bad, the negative, the limiting, the painful, the hurtful, these are the things that we place into the furnace. We release them, we cast them out. We need to sort through our thoughts, our feelings, our attitudes, and behaviors, which build up in our mind as a reaction to traumatic changes in our lives. And this signals the end of a particular type of world of experience that we have had. If we stay open to God, the good, we receive the angels, the insight, the inspiration, and the wisdom that we need in order to know what needs to be released, cleansed, purified, or uplifted. And this is put into the furnace of fire. We can think of denials, statements, and affirmations as a process of firing these limiting and negative thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. And sometimes it's really, really hard to let go of things that have been a part of us, even the negative things. Sometimes it's difficult to let go of people who have been in our lives, even though that relationship no longer brings us joy, and in fact may be harmful and hurtful. It is difficult to let go of cherished ideas that we've held on to, that have kind of set us apart, kept us behind a barrier. And so, because it is difficult, because it is painful, Scripture says here that there shall be gnashing of teeth and tears. So that's what we do when we have to change, when we have to release things that are hurtful and painful. Sometimes we cry outwardly, sometimes inside, and we gnash our teeth. However, this is the work that we are called to do in order to continue to grow spiritually, to let everything go which is not true, or let go everything not true, L-E-N-T. And so this week, not only are we to let go everything not true for Lent, but we are also to remember what is precious in ourselves, in others, and in the very experiences which challenge us to grow. Learning to focus on what is precious enables us to cultivate the thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors which bring peace of mind, joy, and healing, and allow us to let go of what brings us and others lack, limitation, pain, and problems. In your program, you'll find a series of questions to ask yourself. These will help you refine what you consider meaningful or precious in your life. And in our meditation, we will further explore this idea of remembering what is precious. God bless you.